small country of Brunei sits on the northern shore of the island of Borneo. Known for its jungle, its water villages and its fabulously wealthy sultan, the tiny country is hugely rich in oil and gas. Everywhere you turn, nodding donkeys, as they're affectionately known, rock gently back and forth, pumping the oil back from the sea rigs to the land. The climate is stifling, but at least I wasn't the only one running for shade. It is, of course, also home to British Forces Brunei. The British Army have been present in the country since 1962, when they came here to quell a revolt against the Sultan. The country plays happy host to our 900 or so troops and their families, and the Sultan is currently paying for the construction of hundreds of brand new flats on the garrison. Now the only remaining British military base in the Far East, the garrison is unique. The conference room walls are proudly lined with a multitude of Victoria Cross recipients, each one carefully positioned at a jaunty angle to dissuade ghosts from sitting on their frames. And then there's the NAAFI, whose shelves were once cleared entirely of chocolate bars when the Sultan's 5-year-old son paid it a visit. But for 10 days, the peaceful kingdom of Brunei and its quirky garrison is to be transformed. For the purposes of exercise Typhoon Kukri, this is to become the imaginary land of Bairun, a small island hit by a typhoon, causing a devastating landslide and the internal displacement of the civilian population. The exercise will test the skills and preparedness of British Forces Brunei as their corner of the world heads into the typhoon season, and the risk of natural disasters throwing nations into crisis looms once again. The scenario has been set, but it includes a good deal of free play, meaning both sides are able to influence what happens next. Those playing the enemy can throw their own challenges into the mix to see how the reacting force responds.
So the exercise is going to be very demanding and challenging for all levels of the battalion, from the rifleman all the way up to the commanding officer. This is because it's a mindset change for everyone. We've moved from supporting the government of Afghanistan into what we call contingent operations. And contingent operations are everything from peace support all the way up to major war fighting. Therefore, we have to be fully cognizant of what we can and can't do in every level of the exercise and operations.
Exercise Typhoon Kukri is going to be a demanding couple of weeks for British Forces Brunei. There are only 4 people who actually know what's happening all the way through. There will be a lot of free play during the exercise, so we've developed scenarios and allow both sides to play it out, so that will be a challenge for sure. But it's something I know that they'll be more than capable of rising to the challenge to meet.
First came the imaginary typhoon, and with a little help from the weather, there wasn't too much imagination required. Following the disaster, Her Majesty's government has tasked the Foreign Commonwealth Office with an evacuation operation, and assistance from the Ministry of Defence is required. The role of the distressed foreign nationals is being played by the friends and family of the troops. They're being bussed into reception centres set up by the soldiers, where their papers and identities are checked to ensure they are entitled to evacuation.
Being on a bus,
yep.
And we got our passports checked.
Yep.
And now we're here in the...
We're in a waiting area, aren't we?
H. Cox.
You're Heidi Cox, aren't you?
No, I'm H. Cox. And
H.
I'm
Cox.
RGF
Pazlowski. My passport, funnily enough, wasn't on their list. I have a funny feeling that something is going to come to pass later on with regards to being a Polish national. But that might just be my guess.
But I think
Ethan is Polish, but he's got a British passport, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle those different nationalities.
The next stage is to move the families to the Evacuation Handling Centre, which has been erected back at base. Major Sean Chandler showed us round.
We're actually at the Evacuation Handling Centre now, in a secure location. The buses arrive at the gate, which you see to my rear. The buses come in, turn around, and then basically get a brief. So we brief the occupants, try to reassure them, because obviously they've had a distressing time. They're now coming to a place of safety, and trying to say to them, well, actually, you've had a bad time, things are now getting better. But you also have to do a bit of processing, a bit of patience required. We're now going to take you into a holding area, where you'll get a brief, access to refreshments, and just wait there, and we'll call you forward. The priority of women and children first, and families trying to keep them together, and individuals following on afterwards. And then they'll go through a series of passport checks. So if you walk around now, we can actually have a look at the layout. So this is the first area that the entitled persons will see. It's a lane that takes them into the reception centre. The reception centre is an air-conditioned building, quite comfortable. It can seat in the region of 120, 130, so more than sufficient to take the number of entitled persons that we might receive here at any one time. And that's quite important. It allows us to deheat the process for the FCO staff, who are basically behind us, so they can process in slow time all those difficult problems of some people who've lost their passport, people in country who we didn't expect to be in country, travellers, backpackers, those who are, by virtue of marriage, have a partner who doesn't have a British passport, or those who have a partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, who are not entitled. So therefore, all those sticky pieces will take time, and have them in this reception centre buys us that time, whilst keeping them comfortable. So the reception centre, as just said, is here. Obviously, it's control intensive in terms of moving people from A to B, so it takes quite a bit of manpower to effectively shepherd people around, for want of a better word or expression. And we've already received some families, so the families are now waiting in here patiently. They're watching Mr. Bean, which is somewhat apt, and they basically wait here and be called forward, as I said, in order of priority. And then they'll leave through the other door. They have access here to food and water, toilets, etc. So if we come back out here, if we were an entitled person, we'd be called forward from where we just were, and we go down this lane here. And the next thing that will happen is they've been told to basically keep their luggage with them, have their passports, and they'll take their passport to a desk where they'll be checked off against a suspected nominal roll, either people we believe to be in country, people we are expecting to get at this location. That's obviously a fairly simple process, is your name on the list or not? If your name is on the list, then you're going to go into a cleared entitled persons lane, which is on the other side here. So this is the desk where they're checked off. There's 2 people being checked off now. Depending on the outcome of this quick check here, will depend on which lane they go into. So for example, if they have a accredited passport, it's valid, then they'll go into a lane here you can see on my right hand side. That's far more routine and quicker because obviously it's a valid passport. This lane here, this lane is for those, as I said, who have the more tricky problems I discussed earlier. And that also has a funnel lane which takes people out of the camp if they are not entitled and the FCO deem that they are not entitled to evacuation. So there's another bus load coming in here. They come in sort of 30-minute intervals, so hence why we need that capacity to do this. It is a bureaucratic process in some degrees, but we've got to do it thoroughly, otherwise you'll have problems later on. We'll walk through the processing lane so you get an idea how it's set up. Here we start to take some biographical details. Where is their place of domicile? Is it in the UK? Or is it overseas? Who's your next of kin? Because ideally, the FCO can then start reporting back to the UK so people can be notified that their loved ones are actually safe and are actually being extracted from the country. These entitled persons now are obviously being checked. It's a very patient process to take them through and keep them happy. They all seem pretty happy, so that's good. We're obviously doing our job well. Once they've been checked here, and those details have been done, they'll go through this lane, and now we start going towards the holding area where they'll basically be rested. What we have in this area here is obviously the funnel out of the check-in area. Behind us is a medical area, so we have a doctor in there with a basic regimental aid post set up. And then we start to reach the conclusion of the area. So we have an area to the rear where we have military police and intelligence, and their role is to interview people to effectively just ascertain if they've got information that they'd like to deliver to us. And they remain there until we get the green light to evacuate from country. And then there'll be the next move, which will be to either an air point of disembarkation, so an airport, or a sea point disembarkation, which would be obviously a port of some sort for a vessel.
Most of them have got their
To ensure his staff are also fully prepared for such a disaster, David Campbell, the British High Commissioner in Brunei, has brought his team along to play their part.
If we establish that they are British nationals without the travel document, then we issue them with the emergency passport. So it's just one page, photograph, destination, expiry date of the travel document.
You could do so much around a desktop but there's nothing to beat something which is dealing with real people in a real time frame, because the unexpected then happens, and things that you might have thought would happen don't happen, or something unexpected arises, and that's really where it properly tests us all. I mean, I've been impressed sort of walking around. I mean, people are really taking it very, very seriously indeed, and it gives the real feel of a sort of a situation where you're processing people. So I think it's a great tribute to the way in which the garrison has planned this exercise, that it looks so realistic, and it's very impressive to see a whole series of different exercises over something like 10 days, really testing the sort of many different situations that British forces could find themselves in, and those occasions when they'd be working with civilian authorities like embassy staff.
Yeah, it's a bit scary. Actually, I feel real, because in passport checking, they were taking the details, and thus we had to wait until everybody was done. So I feel like maybe I'm going somewhere.
That was very realistic, very efficient, and given that I was on a foreign passport and my daughter was on a British passport, they've done a great job, and we remained as a family.
You did honestly feel like you were being sort of evacuated. It was, and this morning in particular, when they were getting us to the initial location, it was shucking it down with rain. So you actually felt like it was almost in a typhoon as well. Mud, I was up to my ankles in it, and water as well. And I think that everyone sort of really, we gained a lot. And I think also it helps us that we are in Southeast Asia. There is a possibility of a typhoon, and I think now we would know exactly what we should be doing. And as for these guys on the ground, they've been absolutely superb, and it's been good practice for them, and they now know what they need to do. And I think there's a few key areas which I think they can work on, but all in all, they've done really well.
There was tasty Gurkha curry for all those who'd lent a hand, and a couple of hours back in reality to allow the men to catch up with their families. Once everyone was fed and watered and the photographs had been taken, it was time to return to the land of Bayroon, where a new challenge had become apparent.
We're now facing a slightly more tricky position on the ground. We've had reports of some insurgency type activities in the local area, and our role now has moved not only to ensure that entitled persons are safely evacuated, but also that the environment is safe and secure for the non-governmental organisations to come in and maintain a safe environment to provide that humanitarian disaster relief.
We were aware that there was an ethnic group that was unhappy with the Bayroon government and wanted to establish its own separatist state. And as we have been in country, we have witnessed this grouping known as Al-Watan. We've noticed their tactics, their techniques, and their general presence in Bayroon has become much more aggressive since we've been here. We don't think that's as a direct result of because UK forces are here. From what we've seen from their kind of propaganda videos and that, they're taking advantage of the destabilising effect of Typhoon Kukri in order to press their claims for an independent state.
So because the commanding officer wants this all to be as realistic as possible, he's keeping his cards very close to his chest and he refuses to tell us what the plan is. So we've heard there's been some kind of jungle attack or ambush. We're going to go and see if we can find out what's happening.
The role of the insurgents is being played by B Company, who seem to have embraced it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Al-Watan commander. The simple message from me is leave this country as soon as possible. Otherwise, we're going to kill all British forces in this country.
They get very into it. During the Yanduki serial, the guys had got hold of some mock RPGs, some deactivated AK-47s, and they were driving along the road, and a number of fishermen looked quite scared from the local population when they saw them.
We can only have two in the back, can't we? People got to hide.
Having already taken several hostages earlier in the week, the insurgents decide to attempt a second ambush.
So A Company are to the south of us now, and they believe there's an enemy camp there, and they're currently wrecking it because we've left ground sign. But in fact, we're not there because we are here. We plan to move from here, infiltrate their position, and then establish a contact with them to put pressure on them in terms of command and control. We aim to use these civilian vehicles now because they know that we were using the military Hiluxes, so we should be able to pass relatively easily.
Prepare to get your head down, gents.
Now we're going to hunt them.
Following a victory over the insurgents' attack, the intelligence team now move in swiftly to forensically investigate the area.
The first thing is to make sure that you don't contaminate the scene, so keeping any forensic evidence as pure as possible. So any kind of gloves are better than no gloves if you've got no latex gloves. And then using the police evidence bags to make sure that everything is recovered as evidentially sound as possible. This is mostly going to be used for intelligence purposes, but if we can use it as evidence in a criminal court, then we will do. So all I'm looking for really is anything that's going to help me identify the individual, give away any tactics, techniques and procedures of the enemy, and maps, so maps, compasses, GPSs, notebooks, anything like that. So this mobile phone and wallet, for example, will go straight in. What will happen is, once we've got back and once we've gone through the SSE, the stuff will then be transferred back to the dead body, so that anything of personal value will go with him back to his next of kin, because we're not keeping it as a keepsake, we're keeping it for evidence and intelligence purposes. So under that, we take it away, we analyse it, and then we hand it back again. So all I'm going to do now is just write down the details of where I've picked this up from, what's in the bag, and my details, so that later on down the evidence chain they can get in touch with me. Make sure that it's sealed, make sure that the evidence can't be contaminated, and that's ready to go. We'll take pictures of the weapon system, take pictures of the dead man's face, so that when the biometrics, the fingerprints and the DNA analysis comes back from the weapon system and from the map case, from the hat and from the wallet, we can then match up. So his body at the moment is unidentified. Through biometrics and DNA analysis, we can then match the weapon system, the man, and the map and the hat together to get a bigger picture of who was where and who was doing what.
Having secured the area from further insurgent attacks and airlifted any casualties to safety with a little help from 7th Flight Army Air Corps, the troops' attention must now turn to humanitarian aid to help the inhabitants of a nearby village which has been devastated by the typhoon.
We've got about a company-sized strength here, about 120 men. At the moment, we don't really know a huge amount. Straight away, we're on the ground to try and speak to the locals, just to try and understand what the atmospherics are about, who the key leaders are, to say what do the people want, what do they need, and what can we do for them. The idea behind it is that there has been a few incidents elsewhere within the country. And what we're going to try and do is do some reassurance to the local population to say that the government itself is looking after them, and we're just here to help them. And you can appreciate that there used to be a thriving bazaar just behind you. That's now gone completely. It's a small market town. It was hugely prosperous, we're led to believe, previously. And now their main form of income has gone. And I presume the trade has gone with it. Therefore, what can we do to replace that to help them? Okay, just hold it for a moment, leave the pickets in. It might be the wrong atmosphere we're giving off.
One of the things the troops train for is the ability to switch quickly between an aggressive attacking stance, or hard posture, to a de-escalated situation, dealing with distressed locals, where a more humanitarian approach, or soft posture, is required.
We sort of went into quite a hard posture, and at the moment it's probably not the image we would want to portray. At the moment, our profile is nice and soft, so it should be. The locals seem pretty happy with us being here. They understand why we're here, and again, it's about supporting them and helping them for what they need. I'll find out about 1800 once I get the main movers and shakers who are in the town. The boys are out now trying to find them, so we can have a face-to-face and get what they want and what they need, and see what we can do to help them.
I think the nature of the Gurkha soldier very much lends himself to being able to switch from a complete passive stance putting forward to local population straight across the spectrum to, in a moment's notice, switching and being able to be very, very aggressive.
B Company have gone from playing British nationals during the evacuation to the insurgents who carried out the attacks and are now the villagers of the local tribe. But it's fair to say they've embraced all three parts with enthusiasm.
Sometimes doing the three roles is quite confusing, so it's kind of mixed up. Anyway, I'm enjoying it. We created a video, like a propaganda video, and I think that helped very much to create the scenario and to build up the battle picture as well.
Sometimes it can be difficult when they just play the enemy role, civilian role, and turning their mindset into the terrorist role. It can be difficult, but we are soldiers and we make, things happen. So I don't think it is difficult to.
The exercise has thrown up realistic challenges for all the specialist areas involved.
Probably due to the environment of Brunei, all the vehicles they just keep break down. That is why that is a quite hard part of the exercise, to take everybody, all the troops on the ground at the same time to resupply all the cargo at the same time. That is the hardest bit actually I'm getting on.
I do have sophisticated equipment with me. However, due to the hot climate and environment in Brunei, the systems degrades quickly, and also it does affect for electronic waves to travel through. Therefore, I get less distance than what equipment is supposed to give me. So that's a challenge for me.
Literally everybody has been involved in this exercise, from the staff at the High Commission to the children of the Gurkha soldiers, and we've had our own role to play as well, because if there were to be a natural disaster, the troops would also have to deal with the press, and when you're under pressure, dealing with journalists can be quite tricky.
Were it to be for real, I'd be absolutely confident that we'd be able to execute in the most challenging circumstances. The professionalism and enthusiasm shown by the guys has been outstanding in everything that they've done. For some of the more junior NCOs and soldiers, it's the first time that they've executed any of these type of operations, given the focus over the last 10 years for us as a battalion in Afghanistan. So it's been something new for them, and they've really risen to the challenge and have done it in the classic Gurkha, happy, extremely professional way. So yeah, I've been absolutely delighted.
As always, I'm very proud. As the most senior Gurkha in the battalion, I never have doubt in my mind that how our soldiers perform in the war. And Brunei provides an excellent opportunity for this kind of training, not only jungle skills and other stuff, but also, for example, this exercise. We've been training for various other training objectives like NEO, HDR, etc., etc. Therefore, this is where sort of you learn new things, and when it happens, actually, wherever in this zone, in this region, they can go deploy and perform to the highest level, and that's what we've been doing for almost 200 years now in the British Army. Therefore, I'm very proud of them, and I would like to say well done to all of you, and keep doing what you are doing, and keep the name of the Gurkhas to the highest standard.